Good morning. My name is Mike Peckham. I'm the treasurer here at Sendas, and I'd like to give you a bit of an update on the financial presentation I made at the most recent board meeting last Thursday. First of all, we'll talk about the key performance indicators through July 2020. And you'll see the slide in front of you. We had operating cash of $1.64 million at the end of July, which represented 5.1 months of operating cash. Now our target is in the range of 2 to 3 months of, or at least 3 to 4 months of our operating cash. So we're a little high, but we will see fluctuations from time to time. Our current ratio, which is a measure of how liquid we are, our ability to cover our current liabilities, our target is 1.2, and we were at 1.2. So we're right on target there. We have a year-to-date operating surplus of $158,000 compared to that's through July, compared to a budgeted deficit at that point in time we expected to be at minus $60,000. So we're ahead of the game. It represents a surplus of about 4.6%. We will see some of that used in the latter part of the year as we pick up on the fire prevention and fire mitigation work, which we weren't able to do during the first half of the year. We're doing very well on our accounts receivable, our collection of assessments. Through July, we picked up just about 1.2 million, a little over 1.2, which represented 95% of all of the assessments in the first month. So that's probably the best we've had in a few quarters, up by about 1%. And so we expect to be somewhere in the area of 98 or to 99% by the end of the quarter. So now you should see a slide with our operating fund P&L and our operating fund variance. We have a small negative variance on the revenue side through the first 7 months of the year. And that's primarily a result of COVID-19 and the impact on our lifestyle revenues, programs, and such. We just haven't had those events, and obviously no revenue as a result. We have underrun on our expenses, on quite a few of the expenses through this point in time. And as I mentioned before, we have an operating surplus of just under $158,000. And it gives us a positive variance of about $216,000. And we'll look at that at the end of the year. If we're in a surplus position, we will likely roll that over to the 2021 year and have it as the first revenue source for the year. So that will help us from the standpoint of meeting the expenses and reducing the possibility of needing an increase in assessments. So just a couple of quick notes. Our reserve fund at the end of the month was sitting at about $12.8 million. So we have a healthy reserve fund. We've had expenses year to date of $280,000, but we will see that go up in the last 5 months of the year as we do some asphalt work. And as we kick off the Enclave Gate project, which I'll talk a little bit about later on. Our capital improvement fund, again, this has been a year that we're building the fund back up. And at the end of July, we have $300,000 in the fund. And we'll look at projects likely starting in 2021. So Bill, I'll hand it back to you.
Okay, thanks, Mike. My name is Bill Hetling, and I'm the president of the board of directors. And I just want to go over some of the various projects that management reported on during our meeting, and the actions that were taken along the steps of those projects. First off, we approved as a board the Flood District of Maricopa County's request to add a new storm drain at Granite Mountain. And this is to alleviate water accumulation that comes down the mountain and pools up in that area. It's on an existing easement, and there will be no cost to the association, and they'll just move the water farther down Hawes Road, so that's a good thing for us. We also declined an opportunity to have mobile COVID testing up here at the trailhead in the parking lot, and there was discussion on that, and we mainly decided to decline that because of the current availability of testing sites around the area is pretty widely available to all of us, and also we do have a decline within the infections itself, both within Maricopa County as well as statewide. Then we had an update for our 2020 asphalt plan, which will start the latter half of this year. 12 enclaves and 2 parking lots will get seal coated, and then 2 other enclaves and streets will have a replacement of the pavement in their areas. We then approved Butler Hanson for our 2020 audit and tax prep firm, and then we authorized support for making the Tanto Verde Trail official. Now, the Tanto Verde Trail is actually a portion of the Maricopa County's flood district area along the canal. It's paved. We have a lot of walkers and a lot of bicyclists that go up and down the trail. However, the trail is not an official trail. So Maricopa County asked all the stakeholders, which was us and Hawes Trail Alliance, if we would have a problem making that an official trail, which runs in front of our property along Power Road, and we agreed to do that so people could still enjoy that trail along the canal. We then had a request from the Hawes Trail Alliance to do some cleanup work along the front of our property that borders Power Road. And we agreed to allow the folks from the trail to clean that area up of debris and garbage. And once again, that's to no cost within the association. We then accepted resignation from the landscape committee of Dave Kemp, and replaced him with Mr. Jim Murray, and that was approved unanimously by the board. We then had an update on the Enclave Gates project, which is headed by our Safety and Security Committee, which Mike, I believe, chairs, and Mike...
No, I'm not the chair, just a member.
But Mike will then go over the background of the project and where we started moving forward with that.
Thanks, Bill. So the Enclave Gate project has been in the works, the planning of it, for about a year at this point. I've been passionate about it because as your treasurer, I'm very concerned about our operating budget and the assessments that result from the need to cover all of those expenses. And we did see our costs rising around maintaining the gates because of the age of the gates. So gate operations affect everybody in Los Sendas, and typically many times a day. And as you've seen, the one thing I've heard consistently from residents is that the gates break too often. And we understand that, and we appreciate everybody's patience, but we're ready to kick off this project now that the board has approved it. The gate components have reached their end of life. We're not going to replace the physical gates. They're still very sturdy and in good shape, and it's not an expenditure that we need to make at this time. But all of the electronical components, the actuators, all of those sorts of things have reached end of life. As I mentioned, the operating costs increased, and they've increased significantly. They've probably gone up between $80,000 to $100,000 in the last 2 years. So this was very concerning to me as the treasurer, because it was funds that I knew we could likely save if we replaced and brought these gates up to date. And lastly, we had sufficient reserve funds to cover all of the costs that we reached out to various vendors, and based on the quotes, we have more than enough money in our reserve fund. So as Bill mentioned, the Safety and Security Committee was responsible for this project. They developed an RFP with CCMC, our management company. We invited 5 companies to respond. 3 did respond. Of the 3, we discarded one of the proposals because of the price, and the detail was less than we would have liked to see. And the final 2 were AAA Smart Business and Park Pro. Park Pro being our existing gate maintenance company. So we carried the companies themselves carried out independent studies looking at every single one of our gates. We did extensive meetings with them, review of their proposals, generated follow-on questions, talked to their references, created an evaluation criteria, and evaluated the 2 proposals to arrive at a recommendation for the board. Besides looking at just upgrading the gates, people have mentioned that, well, why don't we do away with the enclave gates? Or why don't we do away with the enclave gates and put up gates on the main entrances to Sendas? So we looked at those 2 options as well. So first of all, just eliminating enclave gates. Well, everybody has purchased a home here on the basis that it was a gated community. So ultimately, the board didn't feel, well, the committee and the board didn't feel it would be acceptable. It would also take at least 75% of the membership to vote on that. And the potential for legal action was there as well. So we discarded that option. So the next option was to look at putting gates to the entrances, the main entrances to Sendas. And that would mean at least 3 gates and perhaps as many as 5 gates. We would likely have to have these gates manned 24/7. And just on a bare bones 3 security personnel 24/7, that would have an operating cost of about $420,000 a year. The cost to build reasonable structures, to essentially have traffic control stations, the gates, all of that, we estimated the cost at a total capital cost of about $377,000, and based on estimated useful lives, that would add to an annual cost of about $24,000 a year. The biggest cost was the need to privatize and maintain the current public streets that run through Sendas. So as soon as we close all of the entrances to Sendas, then we would have to take responsibility for the streets. And that's assuming that the city of Mesa would give us that option. We estimate the cost to maintain that on a yearly basis at $433,000. So all of these costs we believe are on the low end, but based on those costs that I just described, it would mean an increase of approximately $256 per home per year. There's also the potential for traffic jams because we'd have to move those structures well back from Power Road and from McDowell. And so for all of those reasons, we discarded that option as well. So the costs and benefits of moving to upgrade the technology and to add some new things as well. First of all, it's the latest technology updated all at one time. So it's going to minimize, I think, ultimately the inconvenience to residents as the gates are upgraded. We've projected a reduction in the overall annual vehicle gate maintenance cost in the neighborhood of $85,000 to $100,000. And this is this increase in cost that I said had been developing over the last several years as the gates continue to age and break down more often. We're going to have mag locks installed in the gates, and these locks will, when the gates close, they will engage electronically to hold the gates in place. Now, there's two reasons for that. We have high winds here in Sendas on the mountain, and there's a lot of pressure on the gates, which can cause them to wear out faster than otherwise. As well, we do have people that try to squeeze between the gates when they don't want to go out through the pedestrian gate. And all of those, we believe, have contributed to damage to the gate systems and caused them to fail more often. We're also looking to install an RFID system, which is a radio frequency ID system. This you'll now be able to enter simply by driving up to the gate. The RFID system will identify a tag either on your windshield or on your light fixture or your headlight, and the gate should automatically open. The key remotes will still work, and of course the key entry at the call box will work as well. By replacing all of these parts over the next, and we think this project will take an elapsed time of approximately a year, but by doing it all at once, we'll end up with parts that are still working and useful to us that we can inventory either here at Los Sendas or with the vendor we've selected. And so if we do have failures, we should be able to swap these parts in and minimize the downtime going forward. We also identified a number of enclaves that didn't have emergency strobes. So when emergency vehicles like fire trucks arrive at an enclave, there is a key system, but they've got to make sure they've got the key. They got to make sure they're near the call box. There's a whole series of things that could cause delays in them getting inside the enclave. By having these vehicle strobes, they simply set off a strobe, the sensor picks it up and will open the gates automatically. So it'll improve and enhance the safety that we have. As I said, we're replacing all of the equipment. We're adding these new mag locks. We're adding the RFID system. And for the call boxes, we're replacing some of the call boxes. But in all of the call boxes by the end of this project, we'll have new backlit keypads. So it'll be easier at night to see the keys when you're trying to get in. So let's talk about the costs. The total cost of the vehicle gates is just over $1 million, and that includes a provision of about $70,000 that we put in place for the possible excavation and electrical work. So obviously the call box, the gates need electricity. We have conduit running under the roadway. We found over the last several years, as we've had failures, some of those have resulted by the conduit breaking and disrupting the wiring. So as I said, that's about just over $1 million. The mag locks on all of the gates, including the exit gates, are $45,000. The RFID system is $310,000. And we have a contingency of $110,000. So the total project cost is estimated at $1,490,600. As I said, we're looking to, so that's a capital cost, and all of those funds are currently available in our reserve fund. So we don't have to go looking anywhere else. The operating cost savings are on maintenance and on communication costs. So currently we communicate with the gates through landlines to make sure they have all of the authorized codes in them, so that when people enter them in the call box, the gates will open for them. As I mentioned, between the two, on the maintenance side, we think the savings will be about $85,000, and on the communication side, about $12,000. So again, that's positive on the operating side, and gives us more freedom as we look downstream year to year through our budgeting process. The logistics will be that we expect to have this project started by the fourth quarter, perhaps by the end of the third quarter, but likely the fourth quarter. The estimated time for the gate work is 2 to 3 days per gate. If excavation work is needed and more electrical work is needed, it could be a little longer than that. The most problematic gates, and we have all of our service calls logged by gate for the last 2 years, so we know which gates have broken down more often. Those will be given the highest priority to be retrofitted first. We will sit down with the vendor and create a schedule for all of the enclaves and gates individually. That will be published. Each enclave will be notified in advance, so you can do what you need to do, but the gates will likely be left open during the course of the work. And we will notify you, of course, if there's any schedule modifications, which odds are there would be. So I mentioned we did the evaluation. We had 5 criteria. We allocated 25% to experience, 35% to pricing, 10% to the types of warranties, 20% to references, and 10% to service plans. And the resulting evaluations gave AAA Smart Business a 54% evaluation, and Park Pro, our existing vendor, 71%. And it really came down to 2 areas, experience and references. And Park Pro has been in the business of installing and maintaining gates for quite a while, and they had very good references come back. So it was interesting that pricing was very close between the 2 companies, and we've used AAA Smart Business for the security system here at the trailhead, and we expect we'll use them for other things going forward. Now, the other thing that we wanted to look at as part of this project were the pedestrian gates. So not all enclaves have pedestrian gates, and of the enclaves that do have pedestrian gates, some are locked and some are unlocked. And obviously, there's certain areas where you can simply walk around the wall. So they're not providing a huge security aspect, I think, to Sendas, to the residents. And in most cases, it's been an inconvenience, I think, to residents because they don't always carry their keys, and therefore they walk around the wall if they can, or potentially squeeze through the gates, which have caused problems. So we're with the mag locks in place, they will not be able to push the gate open. So we recommended to the board that all pedestrian gates, the locks be removed and simply handles be installed so that residents can enter and exit at their convenience. This also reduces the need for pedestrian gate maintenance by our Sendas maintenance staff, who have spent a fair bit of time when the gates get broken, the locks get broken, and going out and replacing or repairing. So of another positive aspect there. So what we did, the committee recommended that the board approve this project at $1,490,600 to award the project to Park Pro and to remove all locks from the enclave pedestrian gates, and the board approved that unanimously. So the next stages are to meet with Park Pro to finalize a contract, any other issues, to set up the schedule, and then we will come back to all the residents of Los Sendas with all of that information. And I would like to thank the Safety and Security Committee, CCMC, for all they did, particularly Christine, Craig McCauley, and Richard Lang. And there was a number of others that contributed to this project. So a lot of work, but I think it's going to benefit every single resident, not only from a convenience, a security standpoint, but a fiscal responsibility. Thank you.
And thank you, Mike. That was really super work by the entire team on something that we hear a lot of input about.
Yes.
And so hopefully we're going to get that all taken care of in the next year or so. Well, thank everybody for listening to us this morning. And once again, we, on behalf of myself, Mike, the entire board of directors, we welcome any feedback, whether it be in person at the meeting or via email. Please feel free to reach out to us at any time. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.